3 spine-chilling true jogging stories exposing sinister encounters with the unexplained at night. The chill in the air was different that evening. It gripped Sarah's heart tighter than usual as she laced up her running shoes, preparing for yet another evening jog through the suburban streets of Oak Park. The neighborhood was a postcard of quintessential American life: manicured lawns, white picket fences, the distant laughter of children under the warm light of street lamps. But tonight felt off, tainted. Shadows loomed longer, and her usual rhythm was interrupted by a sense of unease that prickled her skin. As she rounded the familiar corner by the park, her instincts screamed at her. A glance over her shoulder made her stomach drop. Footsteps echoed behind her, faint but insistent. Discomfort crawled up her spine like icy fingers. It had to be nothing, right? Just her imagination? Sarah shook her head, trying to brush it off. There was a sense of security here, wasn't there? But nothing could shake the unsettling whispers that seemed to dance just beyond her ear. She told herself to focus on the gentle rhythm of her breath, to drown out the whispers growing closer, melding with the night air. It was just the wind, she thought. Yet on her second lap around the park, the whispers solidified into something sinister. Chilled laughter spiraled in her mind, threading together fragments of the neighborhood gossip she had long ignored about Mr. Hanson, the cheerful man next door who shared cookies with her kids and offered his help whenever she needed it. But then there were the whispered warnings of strange occurrences, like neighborhood pets going missing, and late-night figures roaming beneath the moonlight. A sudden jolt of horror shot through her as she contemplated the ghost stories tied to these streets, tales of a phantom jogger known to hunt unknowing mothers under the cover of dusk. Could Mr. Hanson be involved? Was he really the friendly neighbor he portrayed, or did he hide a darker side behind that charming smile she'd come to trust? With her heart hammering against her ribs, Sarah quickened her pace, her feet pounding against the pavement in frantic desperation. Panic surged through her as she thought of her kids, who must be waiting for her at home. She realized with horror that the usual comfort of her surroundings had turned alien. Shadows grew menacing and elongated before her, gripping at her resolve. There was a sickening knot in her stomach that pulled tighter each time she glanced over her shoulder. The laughter of children, once grounding, now echoed mockingly as it morphed into an oppressive silence in her ears. Just as dread clamped its icy fingers around her chest, she caught sight of something near the swings at the park, a figure that illuminated the darkness with an unsettling clarity. Mr. Hanson. Was he waiting for her? The moonlight twisted his features, casting him as both friendly neighbor and lurking predator, a living enigma. Was she overreacting, or had her comfortable world cracked to reveal something terrifying, something closer to home than she had allowed herself to believe? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As she approached, dread clawed at her insides, boiling over until every instinct screamed for her to turn and run. Where are the kids? She thought frantically. The fear nearly paralyzed her, yet she needed answers. Did she truly know who Mr. Hanson was? Was her trust misplaced? As a new wave of chilling laughter surrounded her, Sarah felt the ground beneath her feet shift into a treacherous landscape of uncertainty. The park loomed, deep shadows masking secrets that could consume her whole. The night had only just begun, and as echoes of her children's laughter faded into nothingness, she realized the true horror lay not in the ghosts of the past, but in the very real threat standing all around her. Each step forward felt heavier than the last, as if the very air conspired against her. Mr. Hanson stood rooted in place, his shadow sweeping eerily over the grass. "Sarah," he called, his voice smooth yet tinged with a foreboding that made her stomach turn. "What a lovely evening for a jog, isn't it?" The words hung in the air, thick as fog, and she felt the weight of their implication. She swallowed hard, her heartbeat drowning out the surrounding silence. I should be heading home," she stammered, her legs trembling, longing to bolt in the opposite direction. "Oh, come now. Don't you want to chat a bit?" His smile widened unnaturally, the friendly mask slipping to reveal something darker beneath. "It's been so long since we've had a real talk." Against her will, Sarah found herself drawn closer. A chill crept down her spine, and the whispers intensified, circling her thoughts like vultures. Why did he want to talk? What could he possibly want from her? Glimmers of her children's laughter, the sound of their joy flashed in her mind, everything she held dear. "I really have to go," she insisted, trying to instill strength into her words. But an unseen force rooted her feet to the pavement, her breath hitching in her throat. "Just a quick question then," he said, stepping forward. The light from the street lamp flickered ominously, casting long shadows that danced around them. "What do you think of the old neighborhood tales? You know, the ones about the missing pets and the phantom jogger?" Every instinct told her to flee, yet she stood frozen. "I think they're just that, tales," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The laughter from behind her had died down, replaced by an unnerving quiet. He took another step closer, and Sarah felt a surge of panic. Was this the calm before a storm? But stories have a way of becoming real, don't you agree? Especially if you look hard enough. His eyes glinted in the dim light, predatory. You never know who might be watching in the shadows. Her heart raced as the pieces of the puzzle shifted wildly in her mind. What if he was the one? What if all those stories had a grain of truth? Dread pooled in her stomach, thick and suffocating. "Mr. Hanson, I really need to get back," she managed to say, but the words felt weak as they left her lips. "Back? Back to the warmth of your cozy home? You really should stay out just a little longer, Sarah. After all, the night is alive with secrets." And then, something remarkable happened. The hearty laughter of children echoed across the park once more, ringing out, cheerful and pure. It shattered the tension hanging in the air, wrapping around her like a comforting blanket, urging her to remember the safety of her family, of home. How could that sound come from nowhere? Those weren't her children's voices, and yet they cut through the dark like a knife. In that moment, she surged forward, the root that held her captive tearing away with sheer willpower. She couldn't glance behind her, couldn't risk seeing the disappointment or anger on his face. She ran, fueled by the primordial instinct to survive. Distant laughter morphed into sinister whispers, trailing behind her like a ghost. Each rhythmic thump of her feet echoed louder against her fear, but adrenaline coursed through her veins, igniting every nerve. As she rounded the street corner, she glanced back once only to find the park bathed in unnatural stillness. Mr. Hanson stood there, a stark silhouette in the moonlight, watching her with that same smile twisted into shapes that didn't fit. What if she had crossed a line, ignoring warnings of dark secrets that lingered in the corners of her neighborhood? The safety of home felt uncertain now. Was this the last time she would feel secure in Oak Park, or had she simply scratched the surface of a nightmare? The air grew colder around her, fingers of dread creeping toward her like an unwanted embrace, and she realized she wasn't alone. There was something lurking nearby, ebbing against the darkness, unseen yet disturbingly close. Her breath caught, fear solidifying into ice in her chest. The chase had only just begun, but what was chasing her, and who would she encounter next? Panic surged as Sarah's heart pounded furiously in her chest, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. The night air pressed in around her, thick and suffocating, swirling with whispers of things unseen. She ran, feet pounding on the asphalt, but every shadow felt alive, clawing at her ankles, begging her to trip, to falter. As the moon hung high, casting silvery light over the sparsely populated streets, she fought against the tightening grip of dread. Each step farther from Mr. Hanson offered little solace. He was still back there, lurking, waiting. Would he follow? Or was he simply playing a more sinister game? A sound echoed through the night, a rustle from the bushes lining the sidewalk. Her breath caught again, eyes darting towards the dark. What if it was him? Or something worse? She pushed on, limbs heavy with both the weight of her fear and the urgency of escape. Suddenly, a child's laugh floated through the stillness of the night once more, joyous and carefree. How could there be children out at this hour? Panic blended with confusion, a sharp discomfort gnawed at her. She wanted to believe it was real, to let the innocent sound soothe her frayed nerves. But a deeper instinct warned her that nothing about tonight was innocent. Rounding another corner, Sarah's feet bore her toward the familiar street leading home. Each darkened window felt like an eye, watching her skitter past. She locked her gaze ahead, willing herself to reach her front porch. Safety felt unreachable yet tantalizingly close. Then she noticed something. A shadow, long and lean, leaning against the lamppost just ahead of her. The hair on her arms raised as icy fingers grazed her skin. Was it him? Panic surged as she picked up her pace, heart racing faster than ever. The figure shifted, revealing a face. But it wasn't Mr. Hanson. It was a boy, maybe 10 or 11, standing there under the flickering light. His clothes were dirt-streaked, hair unkempt. A wide grin split his face as if he had just seen something magnificent. "What are you running from?" he asked, his voice oddly cheerful amidst the silent fear enveloping her. Are you lost?" Sarah managed to stammer, her instincts screamed retreat. The boy shrugged, the grin widening. "I know this neighborhood well. You can't hide from it. You shouldn't run." His eyes danced with an unsettling gleam, and she felt the ground shift beneath her. "Listen, I really need to get home," she said, struggling to maintain her composure. "They'll find you before you reach the door," the boy replied, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that echoed in her ear. "You have to watch out for the whispers. They tell stories. Stories about you." The laughter of children returned, louder now, echoing from all directions, surrounding her like an ancient chant. Shadows flickered in every corner, moving closer, merging with the dim light cast by the lamppost. Panic clawed at her throat. She had to leave, had to find safety. But behind her, she heard it again, the unmistakable rhythm of footsteps echoing against the pavement, and they were drawing nearer. Terror struck her like a lightning bolt. "What did you do?" she demanded, the boy's laughter mingling with the sinister shadows. "Just watch, you'll see," he replied, as he began to fade into the night. The moonlit street, once a guide home, felt like a trap. Sarah turned, desperation pushing her to run again, shoving against the fear that wrapped around her like a shroud. But be it the darkness, the whispers, or the haunting laughter, she realized with dread that no matter how fast she ran, something was always following. What awaited her beyond her doorstep? Was it Mr. Hanson, the boy, or something from the depths of her imagination? The answer felt just out of reach, as haunting whispers spiraled through the night, each echo a promise of unspeakable truths yet to unveil who or what was really watching from the shadows. Sarah sprinted forward, her legs propelling her like a machine, fueled only by pure instinct and terror. Every corner she turned felt like a countdown, the footsteps behind her growing closer, almost rhythmic, as if they were mocking her frantic escape. The world blurred around her, and only the pulsating fear in her chest was real. The laughter echoed again, this time upside down, tumbling from above her like a cruel wind. She struggled to catch her breath, the cold night air seizing her throat. "No, no," she muttered, clenching her fists. The boy's grin haunted her thoughts as if carved into her brain. "They'll find you," was all she could think. Sarah dashed toward an alley, hoping its shadows would swallow her whole. She paused momentarily, heart hammering against her ribcage, ears straining to catch a clue. All she heard was the relentless echo of laughter dancing in the air. It vibrated against the brick walls, bouncing back like a taunt. Suddenly, the laughter cut off, replaced with whispers, hisses weaving through the night as if the very walls were conspiring against her. "She thinks she can hide," they seemed to say, voices merging into a dissonant symphony that filled her with despair. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, willing them to disappear. But terror had a knack for creeping back in. She opened her eyes and peeked out into the street. Empty. For a fleeting moment, relief washed over her. But then the shadows grew bold. From the end of the alley, shapes emerged, long dark limbs slithering towards her like smoke coiling in the still air. They moved in rhythm with her heartbeat, taunting her resolve. Let it go, a voice crooned from the dark, sweet and sinister. Everything's better when you stop running. Sarah stumbled backward, choking on the words. With a sudden flash of instinct, she bolted out of the alley, racing toward a neighboring street where a flickering street lamp cast a comforting glow. It should have been safety, but the shadows stretched out from it, clawing at her. As if sensing her thoughts, the laughter erupted again, a guttural sound now, warped and twisted. You can't escape. She could almost feel the fingers of the darkness brushing against her, pulling her, trying to integrate her into their malevolence. Still panting, she turned and dashed toward her house, which stood at the end of the street, triumphant and weak, a sorceress of safety cloaked in normality. She sprinted, fear replacing logic with every step. Just a little farther, each footfall echoed with the certainty that danger lingered close on her heels, but the air grew heavy, as though the approaching shadows shared a secret. Behind her, the whispers merged into a single voice, richer and deeper, echoing her own doubts. Home is a lie. They're waiting for you inside. The voice twisted inside her, forming knots of anxiety. Did she dare go home? The thought of confronting whatever waited at her door paralyzed her. But what choice did she have? Hiding wouldn't save her. Gasping for breath, she reached the porch steps and hesitated, hand trembling as it gripped the doorknob. It felt cold, slick with sweat she hadn't realized she'd shed. The whispers crescendoed behind her, sharp and clear now. The stories they tell, they won't end here. In a desperate move, she turned the knob and pushed the door open, plunging her into darkness. What are you doing? Came the boy's laughter, this time not from the streets, but resounding inside her home. The air felt electric, as if pulsing with the intensity of something just out of reach. Waiting, watching, heart racing, she stepped in, the door slamming shut behind her, sealing her in. The whispers echoed louder, blurring around her in taunting circles. She could swear the walls themselves were in on it, breathing life into the darkness. As she turned to face the unseen, she wondered, would she ever truly be safe again? What lay in the shadows of her own house? Her heart dropped as she spotted movement at the end of the hallway, just beyond the reach of the few flickering lights. Someone was there, watching her. But who or what awaited her in the darkness? The question hung heavy as she stepped forward, each moment stretching taut with dread. Sarah's breath caught as the shadows in the hallway shifted and elongated. A figure stood there, its features obscured, draped in the very darkness that surrounded her. She could feel its presence navigating the narrow confines of her mind, each heartbeat echoing louder in the silence. Who are you? Came her trembling voice, barely a whisper against the oppressive weight of night. The figure leaned forward, and for a moment, the flickering light captured a glimpse of face, discolored and blank, void of any humanity. The edges of its lips curled up into an unnatural grin, almost as if it relished her fear. Home sweet home, it breathed, and those words echoed, doubling back as if the very walls were mocking her. Fingers twitching, Sarah backed away until she collided with the cool wall behind her. The laughter from outside returned, more fragmented now, blurring with the remaining noises swirling in the shadows. Help me, echoed in her thoughts, a desperate plea swallowed by the silence. But who would help her? Who would dare to face what lurked just beyond the threshold of safety? The figure stepped closer, gliding along the wooden floor with the fluidity of smoke. It stretched out a hand, thin and bony, beckoning her to join it in the darkness. Fear clamped down on her throat, stifling her urge to run. You can't hide, Sarah. You've always known you're never alone, it crooned, voice slithering around her like a serpent. She clenched her eyes shut, cringing at the thought of being dragged into whatever malevolent fate awaited her. In her mind, she raced through her memories, searching for solace. But each one twisted into a nightmare, reminding her of echoes she wished to forget: childhood fears, the stories of monsters under her bed, and the promises that home would be safe. "Remember the tales?" the figure continued, sounding amused. "You are part of my story now, part of us." It leaned in closer, sending the scent of decay and despair flooding her nostrils. Sarah's instinct kicked in. Panic surged anew, igniting the fight-or-flight response deep within her. She pushed herself away from the wall, heart thundering, and bolted back toward the front door. She would break free, she had to. The entity's laughter morphed into a dissonant chorus, each note grating against her resolve. "You can't escape. We're everywhere." She flung the door open, stepping out into the cool night air again, but this time, a thick fog curled around her feet, drawing her back with an eerie, magnetic force. Faint whispers filled the atmosphere, warning her of the terrors lurking in the mist. She's made her choice, they called out, the shadows invalidating her moment of courage. "No!" she screamed, digging her heels into the ground. Each second felt like an eternity, stretched out in the space between her will to run and the darkness that engulfed her. The decision weighed on her, pulling at her relentlessly. Suddenly, she heard it again: laughter, but now it was different. It was layered, resonating deep within her mind, an echoing symphony of every doubt she ever harbored. "We know your fears, Sarah," said the voice. "Come back. Come home." The fog thickened. She wiped the tears stinging her eyes, keeping her gaze at the street. In the distance, amidst the chaos, the streetlight flickered one last time before going dark, swallowing the scene in shadow. And then, a flicker of hope: perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way out. A way to break the cycle. But as she hesitated, the weight of the environment pressed in. The whispers grew louder, the figure behind her shifted, solidifying into something more terrifying. "Are you ready to truly face what you're running from?" Her breath hitched, her heart in her throat. The question loomed large as fog enveloped her, and the shadows encroached. What lay ahead? Would she ever uncover the truth lurking in the darkness? The night pulsated, a heartbeat resonating with dread as Sarah stepped further into the unknown. The fog clung to Sarah like a shroud, and every breath she took was heavy with dread. The darkness whispered her name, enticing and mocking. "You can't run from what resides inside you," it cooed, a voice both familiar and alien at once. She shook her head, trying to clear her mind, but the chilling realization settled in that the creature behind her fed on her fear. With trembling legs, she took a tentative step forward, her instincts urging her away from the present stalking her. The night felt alive, reaching out with unseen hands to snatch her back into its embrace. Sarah turned her head slightly, catching a glimpse of the figure just beyond the veil of mist. It was still there, lurking, its shape ever shifting, a grotesque parody of movement, as if it delighted in her terror. "Turn around," it whispered softly, but her heart pounded louder, drowning out its voice. "Just one look is all it takes, and then you'll truly understand." Each word hung in the air, thick with temptation, urging her to surrender to the dread. She could feel the fog crawling up her ankles, wrapping tighter, urging her to give in. "Please," she begged under her breath, "just let me go." The plea felt weak against the suffocating darkness. She stumbled forward, desperate to break free from its grasp. The shadows twitched and rippled, as though alive, following her every frantic movement. Suddenly, a distant sound shattered the night, a crack. Her head whipped around, eyes wide. It came again, closer this time. A tree branch snapping under some unseen weight. She felt her stomach drop as the reality set in. It wasn't just the figure in the fog, there were others. Something was out there with her, something that didn't want her to escape. "Let them in," the voice purred, as laughter erupted from the shadows, a cacophony of cruel mirth that clawed at her sanity. "They want to play." Sarah clutched her heart, the weight of despair pressing down. She picked up her pace, feet pounding against the ground as she raced alongside the house, looking for any sign of life, any saving grace. "Fleeing won't help you," the laughter echoed, rising and falling like the tides. She could see shadows flickering at the edges of the fog, dancing from one side to another. A beam of light flickered through the mist. Her neighbor's porch light, a small beacon in the consuming darkness. Hope flickered anew, urging her to sprint toward it. But just as she turned, a hand shot out from the fog, grabbing her wrist with an iron-like grip. Pain shot through her, and she gasped, twisting instinctively to pull away. But the figure materialized in front of her, closer than ever before, its blank face mere inches from hers. Time stretched as she locked eyes with it. There was no escape, only the stark realization that it had always been waiting for her. "We're all part of this story," it breathed, each word laced with malice. "You can't run from your own shadows." With a sudden jolt, she managed to break free from its grasp, lungs burning as she bolted once again toward the light. She could hear the whispers escalating, forming a terrifying chorus that echoed her footsteps. "Come home, Sarah, come back." She leaped onto the porch, fists pounding against the door, desperation coursing through her veins. Shadows writhed at the corners of her vision, reaching out as if longing to pull her back into their waiting arms, and then, in a swift, shocking moment, the door swung open. A familiar face looked down at her, startled but welcoming. "Sarah? What's wrong?" But before she could answer, she felt the chill of the fog wrapping around her legs, dragging her back into the night. "Help me!" She screamed, but her voice barely made it past the threshold, swallowed by the fog. The door began to close, slowly, agonizingly, and her heart raced. "No!" she pleaded, but the darkness lunged forward, pulling her away from the warmth of the light, and she was consumed by shadows once more. Then, a final whisper glided through the air as she was enveloped, "We're always here waiting for you." What awaited her in those depths? What truths lay buried within the shadows? As silence settled over the night, the air thrummed with an unspeakable tension, and one final question lingered: would she ever break free from her own story? The darkness wrapped around Sarah like a suffocating blanket. She could hear the soft shuffle of feet behind her, closing in, like a predator in the night. An awful realization dawned on her: it wasn't just one shadow, but a multitude, each one hungry for her fear, for her despair. They echoed her thoughts, twisting them until they were unbearable. "Where are you going, Sarah?" The voice was seductive, dripping with malice. "The party's just begun." Sarah was forced to make a decision. The fog coiled around her, whispering sweet lies, the kind that promised solace in surrender. But a deeper instinct clawed at her, urging her to fight. She swung around to look at her captor, her breath hitching as the fog parted slightly, revealing its twisted form. Its featureless face was a grotesque abyss, drawing in light instead of reflecting it. She could feel it pulling at her, like a gravitational force. The laughter returned, musical, yet jagged, stabbing her mind in rhythm with her frantic heartbeat. "Don't fight it. You will never escape, not now, not ever." With a sudden decision ignited by sheer terror, Sarah sprinted into the fog, frantically searching for refuge among the trees, the house a talisman of safety now far behind her. Branches snatched at her clothing, scraping her skin. She could feel them encroaching, those shadowy figures, mingling with the fog, obscuring her path and diminishing her will. "Just give in," one of the shapes hissed. "We can show you the truth, but what truth could be worth this torment?" Panic surged within her, fueling her desperation. She stumbled through the underbrush, each step a battle against the intangible force trying to drag her down. The fog thickened, and the air turned cold, an icy grip around her throat. For a fleeting moment, her thoughts drifted to her family, her friends. Would they even notice she was gone? Would anyone come looking? A shiver raced down her spine. No one knew where she was, not really. It was just her against the shadows. The echoes of the laughter grew louder, and each taunt wrapped itself around her sanity, squeezing tighter. "You're alone, Sarah. You've always been alone." Through the haze, she finally spotted a dilapidated barn, its door hanging loosely on rusted hinges. Adrenaline flooded her system as she rushed toward it, the only glimmer of hope. She threw herself inside, slamming the door behind her. A heavy thud reverberated through the frame as she pressed against it, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Inside, darkness beckoned like an old friend, and a chill swept through her bones. She squinted, trying to see through the gloom. The shadows inside loomed tall and of distorted shapes, hinting at past horrors. The scent of mildew and decay filled her lungs, but she forced herself to push deeper into the room. Every crack and creak twisted her nerves into a fraying wire. Suddenly, a low growl emanated from the far corner, creeping closer like a stalker. She turned just in time to catch a glimpse of something monstrous and dark, emerging from the shadows. It stopped in place, scrutinizing her with unseen eyes, and an unbearable weight pressed against her chest. "Sarah," it rasped, a sinister coo pouring into her mind. "Have you come to join us?" She fought against the wave of terror surging through her, pushing back against the oppressive dread that threatened to unravel her very being. This was a moment of decision: stand and confront the darkness or succumb to its cold embrace. With a sudden burst of courage, she screamed, "No!" But in response, laughter erupted once more, echoing endlessly as the darkness lunged toward her, a swarm of horrors eager for a victim. Would she fight back, or would the shadows finally claim her? As the door behind her rattled ominously, Sarah felt the remnants of her hope begin to flicker. Survival seemed a distant dream, shadowed by the encroaching night. Then she saw something glinting in the dim light, a possibility, perhaps a weapon or her undoing. In that moment, every heartbeat seemed to count down to a reckoning. Could she summon the will to use it, or had she already surrendered to the dark? As her fingers wrapped around the cold handle, a whisper echoed in her ear, "Welcome home, Sarah." The chill intensified as she tightened her grip around the metallic object, a shovel. Its weight felt oddly reassuring, providing a flicker of courage against the overwhelming dread. She held it tightly, her knuckles white, each breath coming sharp and quick, filling her lungs with the dusty smell of decay. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by an oppressive silence that cloaked the barn like a thick fog. But the silence was a lie. The shadows still swirled, moving closer as if the dread was palpable, eager to consume her. The growl rumbled again, deeper this time, echoing off the rotting walls. Goosebumps sprouted along her arms, stark against the cold sweat. "Why struggle?" the creature cooed in that sinister whisper. "Embrace the darkness. Embrace us." Her heart raced, pounding so loudly she wondered if it echoed in the darkness for all of them to hear. Could they taste her fear? She felt it, thrumming beneath her skin like a wild animal desperate to break free. "No," she shouted again, adrenaline pouring through her veins. "Get away from me." The shadows surged forward, merging with the deep blackness, whispering seductive promises of relief, of bliss found in surrender. But she wouldn't give in, not now, not ever. With a sudden lurch, the entity lunged at her, a mass of ebony spikes and glimmering edges, and she swung the shovel with every ounce of her strength. The sharp edge connected with something solid. She heard a sickening thud, followed by an agonized wail that reverberated through the barn and seemed to shake its foundation. It stumbled back, dark tendrils recoiling as if stung, but that moment only fueled their rage. "You think that hurts? You think you can fight us?" Each word sliced through the air, punctuated by sickening laughter. Sarah's legs trembled, threatening to give way beneath her. Panic flared again, but she could not let it win. The barn felt like a mausoleum, ancient and cracked, teeming with unseen threats. Drawing a deep breath, she charged forward, each step louder than the last as her resolve solidified. "You want me? Come and get me." The shovel became an extension of her will, ready to carve her way through. The darkness surged around her, rippling and pulsing. The energy buzzed in the air, pulling at her mind. But with each swing of the shovel, she realized she wasn't just fighting her pursuers, she was battling her own mental fragility. The shadows laughed cruelly, "You're just delaying the inevitable." She backed toward the barn's windows, their shattered glass glinting like jagged teeth under the moonlight. Through the cracks, she glimpsed the encroaching dark figures, an army of despair, with hunger evident in their stance. The silhouettes formed shapes that twisted in grotesque mockeries of humanity. Were these victims or hunters? In a sudden moment of clarity, Sarah saw them not as a singular threat but as an unyielding collective. Each shadow represented a fear she had faced, every ghastly form a moment of pain, a memory left unresolved. Then, through the chaos, one shadow broke away from the group, moving toward her with an unsettling familiarity. "Sarah, why resist?" It crooned, voice soft yet dripping with venom. "You belong with us, shut up." She shouted, swinging wildly. The shovel connected again, but this time she felt a different weight, a shift in the air. The creature screeched, ground vibrating beneath her feet. Heart racing, she steadied herself, realizing the terror she felt was rooted in a fear that was all too human. The truth whispered in her ear, infiltrating her thoughts. "Face us or you'll never be free." The darkness seemed unchanged, but the shadows were losing their form. She had to find their heart, where their power resided. With a shattering scream, Sarah plunged forward. Just as she did, a bright flash illuminated the barn, stinging her eyes. The shadows shrieked in response, jerking back as if burned. In this fleeting moment of light, she saw them clearly, their wretched faces twisted in rage and despair. Every scream filled her with both fear and an odd sense of resolve, but light flickered, threatening to fade, and the darkness writhed restlessly, waiting to gather itself again. Would she harness this moment or let it slip away, swallowed by the night? The answer seemed to swirl within the shadows, beckoning her to make a final choice. She needed to act before the light extinguished, before the whispers returned to claim her. As the last spark flickered, Sarah felt the chilling grip of impending darkness tightening around her. Would she find her way to what lay beyond, or was she already too late? The darkness lunged back toward her, a tide of swirling shapes, each one writhing and hissing in denial. The familiar voice echoed, distorting wildly, "You can't escape what's inside." Eyes wide, Sarah swung the shovel again, desperate for another glimmer of light. Each thrust felt like she was tearing through layers of her own soul, fighting both the shadows surrounding her and the insecurities buried deep within. Get away. She needed to dispel this disorienting fog that muddled her thoughts. The shadows shrieked in fury, every cry a dagger aimed at her sanity, but she caught a glimpse. Just to the right, the shadows stirred in a way that seemed almost human, a flicker of sorrow intertwined with malice. "You're afraid of facing the truth, Sarah," it taunted, reaching out a gnarled hand. "We all have our demons. Why deny them?" "No!" she yelled, her voice shaky yet defiant. "You're not real. You're just my fears." The revelation struck like lightning. Maybe that was their power, the ability to twist her own thoughts against her. For a moment, she hesitated as their laughter grew, a chilling symphony of mockery. "Is that so? We are all that you've ever feared, all that you refuse to confront. You'll never vanquish us, only yourself." The rope of dread tightened around her mind, drawing her toward despair, yet she remembered her resolve, her breath steadying for an instant as anger replaced fear. The shovel felt lighter now, almost ethereal. "I'm not afraid," she shouted, and with a surge of strength, she brought the blade down straight into the shadow's outstretched hand. A hollow scream erupted, resonating through the barn like a funeral wail. The creature recoiled, its form sparking as if splintering under pressure. Light flickered again, casting harsh edges on the barn walls and illuminating the grotesque faces that had haunted her. For every shadow twisted in anguish, she felt a fleeting sense of freedom. "You're weak. You'll never be whole," they hissed, coiling tighter, attempting to pull her back into the depths of chaos. "Maybe, but I'm still here." The words tore from her throat, fueled by the last vestiges of hope. She swung the shovel again, connecting with another form, feeling the rush of something break free inside her. The air shimmered with tension, and for a moment, Sarah felt the presence of an unseen force. It surged through her like a wild storm, crackling with energy. Her previous doubts slipped away through the channels of strength she never knew existed. With renewed determination, she struck again, not just at the shadows outside but at the shadows within. Each impact lit a small spark of courage, igniting her spirit against the tide of despair that had tried to claim her. The shadows screamed, contorting into frenzied shapes now desperate to hold on to her once again. "Face it," they screeched. "You'll remain trapped unless you give in. We are your past, your pain. Then let it out." She roared back, plunging the shovel deep. The ground beneath her feet quaked violently as memories rushed to the surface. Every shame, every regret surged forth, clawing at her for acknowledgement. Tears streamed down her face, blinding her for a moment. But instead of retreat, she pressed on, her shoulders burning with primal fire. The flickering light began to swallow the shadows, pushing them back into the corners of the barn. With a scream that tore through both the air and her heart, Sarah swung one last time. The ache within her echoed outside, shattering the wall of despair blocking her escape. The barn erupted in a cacophony of broken sounds, like glass shattering against stone. The shadows writhed, their forms fading, their screams a haunting refrain as they slipped away, leaving Sarah drenched in sweat and sorrow. But relief was short-lived. In the dim light, just as the last remnants vanished, a far darker shape emerged from the barn's entrance, looming hungrily against the moonlight. Its breath was a cold wind, sharp and clawing. Suddenly, Sarah felt a tear in reality, a rumble that shook her to her bones. Facing the unknown threat, the shovel trembled in her hands. "Not all of them are gone, not yet," it whispered, a promise of torment disguised as a warning. What was waiting for her outside? Had she truly won, or was something even more insidious now awake? Sarah's heart raced, a wild drum echoing in her ears as she stood trembling in the barn's threshold, the remnants of darkness flickering on the edges of her vision. The night felt altered, the air electric with both fear and the faintest hint of hope. She had faced the shadows within, driven them back, but now, a different kind of darkness loomed larger, waiting just beyond the barn's threshold. Steeling herself, Sarah took a breath. Her fingers tightened around the shovel's cold handle, an anchor in this chaotic sea of uncertainty. "Whatever you are, I'm not afraid of you," she whispered, though her insides felt like a coiled spring, ready to snap. With reluctant determination, she stepped out. The moon stood high above, illuminating her surroundings like a spotlight in a dream gone awry. The familiar world of her neighborhood was transformed. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twining around street lamps like fingers clutching at her. The laughing echoes of children that had once filled the streets felt like echoes of a haunting melody. There he was. Mr. Hanson stood just beyond the barn, a giant shadow against the moonlight, and he smiled, lips curling back in a way that didn't match the softness of his eyes. "Hello, Sarah, I've been waiting," he said, each word sliding through the air like silk, smooth yet somehow tainted. The dread that had slumbered within her rose again, a serpent coiling tight in her stomach. You're not real," she spat back, the confidence she'd found flickering under the weight of doubt. Her mind raced back to her children, their laughter, their innocence. You've harmed children. You play games with their lives. Only the stories that dwell within." His voice was low and playful, dancing over her skin and sending chills straight down her spine. "And you, Sarah, are part of those stories now. Ready or not." Suddenly, the world felt thicker, as if the night itself drew closer, inhaling the air around her. And then she saw them. The shadows she had cast away in the barn began to swirl, creeping back with renewed vengeance, heading straight for the man who remained standing still, unbothered. "Get away from him!" Sarah shouted as the shadows encircled Mr. Hanson, their forms merging as they sought to claim him, to drag him into their depths. A twisted laugh bubbled from his throat. "Oh, but you misunderstand. They cannot take me. I am their master, the keeper of these tales. I am invulnerable in this darkness." Fear clawed at Sarah's resolve, yet the urge to protect her own surged within her. "I won't let you," she cried, raising the shovel again, its metallic edge gleaming. "I won't let you torment anyone else." With a fierce cry, she charged, feeling the very essence of her fear fuel her steps. The shadows swarmed, an ocean of despair crashing toward her. But this time, they didn't terrify her. She fought against them, and as the shovel connected with their writhing forms, a wave of light erupted from her heart, pulsing with the strength of every ounce of love she carried for her children, her home. With each swing, shadows splintered, torn apart by her bravery, the laughter around her diminishing into nothingness. "Stop!" Mr. Hanson bellowed, but she pressed forward, fueled by a force deeper than fear, hope and defiance intertwined in a fierce embrace. The darkness recoiled from her ferocity, the grotesque whispers turning into frantic screams, dissonant and wild. "Your story ends here," she shouted, and with a final effort, she swung with every ounce of her strength, the shovel meeting the ground with a cathartic thud. The force rippled outward, blasting the shadows away as the air hummed with energy. The night crackled and boomed, light flooding the space with pure intensity. Mr. Hanson's form distorted, shifting as the shadows peeled away. "No! This isn't how it happens," he shrieked, but his power crumbled, yielding to the light she had summoned from her core. Suddenly, a wind whipped around her, carrying with it the laughter of children, not in fear but in joy. Her heart soared as she heard them again, her children, playing, safe. The darkness fractured before her, engulfing itself in a maelstrom of silent screams until it vanished entirely. As the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pinks and golds, Sarah stood panting and breathless, her heart thrumming a victorious rhythm. The shadows of the night had dissipated, replaced by the golden warmth of dawn. And in that moment, Sarah knew she was home. Her past echoed softly with the flickering absence of fear, and she felt lighter, unshackled from what had once held her in chains. Taking a deep breath, she turned, stepping forward toward her house, toward her children, this time unburdened, ready to weave a new story free from darkness, filled with laughter and love. "Home sweet home," she muttered, feeling at last that she belonged. As the camera pans out, remember to protect your light and share your story. It matters. Now, before you go, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about tonight's wild ride. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need this conclusion in their lives. This is the moment to show your support. Let's keep this journey alive together.